we watch Dasha Nekrasova's The Scary of the 61st, a horror thriller she released in 2020.
Fuck that, get down. Down.
Het is wel een film, toch?
Ik vind het wel leuk, geloof ik. Is it possible to review this film?
I don't know.
Why wouldn't it be?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it's such a sympathetic film.
Sympathetic.
Sympathetic, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, why is it sympathetic?
Yeah, because it's like because it's cute.
Why is it cute?
Because it's a little fantasy.
Why is that cute?
Because of the way she puts herself in this film. You know, this sort of eroticism.
Like Cindy Sherman.
Yeah.
And why do you find that cute?
Yeah, in the way 7-year-old girls are cute who come up and say they're going to do a theater play for you or a musical. And then you have to watch.
Yeah. But it would be nice to. She's a charismatic person, right, Dasha? That's why it's nice to watch.
Yeah.
And she has all these ideas about the kinds of situations she wants to be in or be put in. And then she creates those situations herself. But I weirdly feel like we're back in visiting an art school and we have to judge people's work.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, and then
Why?
I feel this sort of. You have this mask of the film critic or the art critic, and then you're invited to an art school to say something about the students' work, and then this used to happen to us a few times because we called ourselves Keeping It Real art critics, and I always felt lost. I didn't know what to say to these students because if I see their work, then I can completely imagine that maybe they have all these ideas about it and something can come of it, and why would I come and say what I think?
Yeah.
And I'm also interested. Like I like seeing these works that people make, the things they come up with.
I mean, it's definitely a sympathetic movie and a smart movie.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, there are moments that you really recognize things that she has thought in her own life. Like the moment that they try to reenact the suicide to prove that it's not a suicide, that this isn't possible. And then she almost chokes, and then like they conclude that obviously it couldn't have been suicide. That's something that's like an observation out of her life, that she sees people having these kinds of trains of thought wanting to find proof for their pre-existing conclusions, no matter what, in the face of the contrary.
Yeah.
And this is, there's a real sense of humor there. And if I link that to what I know about the Red Scare, and that Dasha and her partner Anna, that they present themselves as these Russians who sort of infiltrate in American culture, or yeah. There's a sense of humor in this, in the way in which yeah, she sort of becomes all these different people with these different conspiracies in the film, and all these American ways of coping with things.
Like what? What is very American about what?
Well, sometimes she's like the bitchy Mean Girls girl who can't stand the dorky boys, and then next moment she's sort of running like a little girl when she's scared. She does all these sort of American mannerisms, but with a kind of distance that you can see through that. You can see this sort of what she sees as a Russian infiltrator coming through. That's something that I enjoyed watching.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also when she does the twitching with her face in the acting, it's not good acting, but it's their expressions of this sense of a kind of darker Russian figure that is coming through. Which sort of portrays a kind of sense of imagination which is un-American and therefore attractive. And it's also not logocentric. It's really about images and religion and channeling and voodoo, irrationality, sexuality, femininity. That's also why the lesbian scenes are. That's good, I think. Like, it's interesting to see her doing that. This sort of dominant female figure. So I appreciate the sense of humor, I think.
Yeah.
Which is very rare. Like, I mean, in art, literature, film nowadays, I suppose.
I think sort of in the middle, I thought it was very strong. There was a while, like for half an hour, the film was really strong and funny, and this sort of schizophrenic. I mean, that none of these individuals has a core. There's no real psychology. There's no consistency. I mean, there's more psychological consistency in a South Park episode, you know. Cartman is a real person, but all these, girls are not. They're like collages of American mannerisms. And for a while, for like 30 minutes in the movie, somewhere in the middle, this somehow convinces. I was sort of engaged. And then it gets boring.
And it convinces, like, do you mean in a Ryan Trecartin kind of way?
Exactly. Like, oh yeah, this is just sort of autistic, just pile up all that shit and sort of glue it together in this sort of shit ball of Americana cultural critique, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you enjoy it. Maybe because sort of the steps that are taken, the plot helps with this.
Mm.
But then when the plot becomes a little bit more spiritual and sort of scary and like towards the end and you're euphorical.
Well, when it becomes plot driven, actually. Again.
Yeah.
I think it starts to work when you get this sort of lesbian bond between Dasha and the other girl,
Yeah.
like the roommate. And then this stops working once there has to be this sort of surprise moment that the other girl is actually a perpetrator, or she's a murderer. Then it becomes like that wasn't what the whole thing was about, or something.
No, you think she made a mistake by making it like an actual thriller, sort of spiritual thriller?
I don't know.
Okay, like if you would have to develop this film from the lesbian scene onwards, how would you have done it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was really enjoying it, like when they were in the diner and they were drinking coffee, and Dasha was doing the weird Russian or whatever facial twitches, and then you saw
Giselle Maxwell?
Giselle Maxwell, and then the other girl becomes like runs out and says, "I don't want any part in this anymore. You've been manipulating me." This sort of that's a kind of weird collage-y Ryan Trecartin moment or something, because there's nothing to motivate that. Like it's out of the blue. There's no, and that works.
Why does that work?
Yeah, because it forces you. It's so obviously not psychologically driven. It's not rational in any sense. So you're forced to look at it from a detached position, like without engaging with the characters or feeling for them.
Mm-hmm.
So you start to look at the detail, and there's a lot of attention for detail there, like Ghislaine Maxwell and the way she turns and walks away, and the acting and the facial expressions, and before that they go and get this crystal. So there's love for these sort of paraphernalia. It's like a religious, attractive collage, which seems to make sense in its own way.
Mm.
Like, in the sense that I don't know exactly what I'm watching, but I have the feeling that I'm watching something, at a personality or a desire or a will that is maybe not very strong or strong enough, but it's there. So it's something like that. I think the editing, maybe.
Is the editing bad?
Yeah, I think that you could have cut out a lot. You could have skipped some twists and turns.
Yeah, you think so?
I don't know. Yeah, it's the structure, really, right? I mean, this is a combination of the script, the editing. But I think the film could have done with a final sort of complete do-over, where you take out huge chunks and just
But
decide.
would you be able to make a good film out of this just
No.
by editing?
Well, no, you could make a. No, maybe when I look at it, like sometimes I'm looking at things that I want to offset my art against. I think that's up until now. That's what we've done with these podcasts.
Yeah.
And when I look at this, I see someone you could potentially work with, or who is an actor, who has a will, who has ideas, who has desires, who is interesting, and who expresses these in her artwork. So I look at it as in, okay, I wouldn't want to try and improve this film, but I do feel like, it would be interesting to integrate some of this in our film. I don't know how. I have no idea, and it's just...
So you think it's a shitty film? It doesn't work as a film. It works as a portrait of this Dasha character.
Well, more than that, I would say, because she did make it. I think girls, women, myself included, have a tendency to be complacent in a certain way. I mean, men can also be complacent in their way, but the complacency you can see in women when they are making art by themselves, or I don't know, is that they are quite easily pleased with the originality of what they do, or let's say what I do, for instance, and then I get a sense of what it is, and then I finish it off neatly towards the end. That is sort of expected. That is sort of that I extrapolate from this thing. I've sort of defined it as a certain type of quality, and then I don't experiment any further. So, for instance, with the Keeping It Real art critics thing, I think you were the one, the driving force to sort of lift the whole thing out of being stuck in a critical format. You had this urge from the very beginning. You wanted to pervert, undermine, transform this quality. Whereas I was quite, comfortable in it, and also would have stayed in it maybe even if you hadn't forced me out. And I think there's some of that in this film, where it's just sort of, it rattles off towards the end, and nothing surprising happens anymore, because it's sort of this category of ironic collage, horror, Americana show.
Yeah.
So I think it's it could improve when it's when this type of art making has to interact with another type of art making, or someone who wants to undermine this or challenge it, because then you can also grow. Then you can become angry, and you can really start to feel which things you want to. If you have this burning house, your art is under fire because someone else says it's not good enough. Then you start to realize which things you want to save out of that burning house, and which things were just merely, frivolous to your own art making, or sense of being an artist, or whatever. I think because it's original, I think it is. My sense is that this is original, even in its own scene. But I don't know. But let's say it is. It's original, and therefore there's no pressure on it. Like, it's not really under duress from any competition or people who challenge the ideas, because people are already impressed with the fact that you're using this political drama of Epstein to create this weird humoristic debut of a film.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree, and it's sort of very homage and tributey towards, I don't know, film buffs, or the way it's filmed on Kodak 35 millimeter, and like the music alluding to sort of good cinematography. I don't know, whatever that means.
Called.
Like indie movies from the past, like the way Easy Rider is shot, or Blow Up, or whatever, like these films. You
Yeah.
know? So in that sense, he's being a good girl, and then the originality comes from not from the visual aspect, but from the fact that she chooses this Epstein plot and the way that she, portrays women. Yeah.
Also, because I think women are like, people tend to praise women more for less of a effort in a way in being original, or women aren't pushed as much. I think like it's easier for a woman to get praise because the people don't expect as much.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't have this male drive, etc.
Male drive?
Most women don't have this. Like if a woman shows even a slightest form of wanting to wanting something to be exactly the way she envisions, like having a vision, people are very easily impressed by women with visions, even if these visions are just not very elaborate at all. So my theory is that women, if they make art, they usually or often do so from the need to be seen, which is a female trait, to be desired sexually, and one of the art forms that is most akin to this position or this form of art making is the actress, or the performer, the entertainer, like Marilyn Monroe. But there are men who also function from this position, who make art from that position, like Orson Welles, for instance. I think he's an artist. He's a director who's actually an actor who creates a setting for himself within which he becomes a desirable man or something, desirable object. A man better than the others, or something like this. It's but if you do this, if you don't fully embody like the actress, like Marilyn Monroe did, or like Elizabeth Taylor in a different way did, by also being, in her case, a really good actress, then you have to also be cunning with this position. If you're making art, which is sort of designed to make everything evolve around your desirability, I think you have to be very aware also of that. that this is the driving force of your film, because I think the film works when Dasha is really doing that, you know, like the moment that you said her expression is really good here, when she's walking alongside the metro, when she's this sort of Lilia forever,
bewildered,
dreamy. 90s self-absorbed video.
Well, I don't
figure.
care that she's not a very good actor in the sense that she can deliver lines in a believable way. Let's just look at her as an artist.
But that's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think the main problem that you're pointing at is that I really like this comparison with Citizen Kane or Orson Welles.
Yeah.
Citizen Kane is the movie where he really invents a character for himself. This magnet. But what's critical in this film, or essential in this film, the main character played by Orson Welles is very driven. He wants things. He's forcing his will on other people, on the girl, on the world around him. He's doing all these things. But the thing that is being discovered in the film is what drives him and why. This is what this film is sort of finding out. And this is also the mystery. The drive is strong, but it's a mystery. And in this film, Dasha assumes a quest for truth, a drive to find out about Epstein, but it's fake. It's totally fake. It's nonsense. You know, it's but she is driven because she's making this film.
Yeah.
But it's not but sort of the plot or the story doesn't connect with the actual artistic urge Dasha possesses and is driven by.
Mm-hmm.
She makes a joke out of that. So it stays in a sort of dreamy, collagey, horror, drugs taking, you know, like it's conspiracy theories. You know, it's a very smart sort of. I don't know. It's hip. You know.
Yeah, she allows herself to be flaky on the basis of her character being flaky.
Yeah.
Which is not a very. It doesn't end up. It doesn't give a very good result.
No, but the reason is, of course, it doesn't give a good result because it's nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like Ryan Trecartin's movies are in the end not that interesting. You know?
Well, Brian Trecartin, maybe that's why I started saying that thing about what the complacency of girls or women.
Yeah.
Relating to this film. Ryan Trecartin does sort of bring it to its own end, like the form that he finds. And he adheres, like he really understands that he doesn't have to make it neat or, you know, try and make it into something that it isn't, or that it has to adhere to anything else.
Like the laws of cinema or plot point A, plot point B.
Yeah.
It's really fucked up in its structure.
Yeah, and you can say that's also boring, but that doesn't. That I don't think that has to do with the the structure is quite. He's quite strict about that in a way.
Yeah.
Or the logica, the
logic.
The logic of the thing is sound.
Yeah, why is that good?
Yeah, why is that good? Because it's Because I think this element that you discussed in the beginning, of looking at a 7-year-old play, like a play made by 7-year-olds, that's because because the logic isn't quite sound.
That's not really an argument, huh?
Well, it tries to please something else, some idea of what a film is. But whereas there are discoveries in there that you could take further, much further, I don't know how you would have had to make the film.
But what did you think of my about this question of drive?
Yeah.
You know, not putting that at the core of the film. Like, this film takes for granted that people have quests. In America, everybody has his own quest. It's like capitalism, you know. I sell shoes, you sell this. Everybody has his own quest.
Yeah.
Some people's quest is to find out about Epstein. Others are more into like 9/11. It's generational. It's also random. It's dreamy. It's whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think that's true. I think you're right. It's also very self-evident in a way, but I don't know.
Yeah. No, but the reason why you like this film is because you feel and sense that there's more in it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's also hardcore, it's also deep, it's also real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I'm projecting, maybe I'm trying to create like a greater artist out of Dasha because I like her. And she's pretty, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, but she's charismatic.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And smart, and you know, all these things.
Yeah.
So you just want her to sort of wipe this whole veneer of you know, this collage Americana, and you know,
Yeah.
do something real with that character of hers.
Yeah. There's something there that's sort of latent sexually. There's no male figure.
Yeah, you think the film is lacking a male figure?
Yeah.
A strong male figure.
No, I'm not saying a strong male figure. A male figure. Like all the guys in there are cucks.
Yeah.
In the way in which the Dasha and her character, both of them, they conflate in that sense. Romanticize the dreamy girl, the drifting, flaky girl. There's no space, there can't be like a powerful male sexual figure. I mean, the guy in the end, like the makelaar, the broker, he's not, he has to sort of stand in for that, right? Because you have to have something that suggests a dominant male figure in a horror movie, maybe something like, I don't know. But it doesn't work. He doesn't deliver that at all. So that's missing. Because it would sort of it would put this dreamy self-image under duress. And at the same time, this whole dreamy romantic idea, notion, it's sort of yeah, God, this is...
You're wobbly. We're doing this tomorrow, but this is interesting. We stop
Yeah.
now. I see your eyes. You look tired.
I am tired.
Let's go to sleep.
The next day.
Well, you feel that the male presence is latent, indeed, in this Epstein figure, and she sort of grants that part of the symbolism to the character of Noelle, who becomes possessed and wants to fuck Andrew and stuff like that, like using the magazines to rub against their vagina and so on. So the sort of attraction within this whole Epstein situation, like sexual attraction, I don't know, or sexual energy is sort of made fun of. It becomes small and a little bit, it's made, it doesn't become heavy or like, what am I trying to say?
Yeah, it's a bit prudish there.
Yeah.
It's a bit prudish. Like all the sort of sex is not real and ridiculous. There's no real desire. Whereas I think the reason why pedophilia is so traumatic to women, for example, women, is because victims of pedophilia also have real sexual desires.
Yeah.
I mean, back to a man, Milo Yiannopoulos, who
Yeah.
tells about that, his history of being a victim of pedophiles.
Yeah.
How it's sort of part of his current sexual enjoyment.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this film doesn't search for the deeper relationship between sexual trauma during youth and sexual behavior when you're then older. It separates it in a very neat way. She was traumatized. Now she has this sort of lame sexual relationship with a dork, and then all of a sudden it comes up in this weird phase, like during sex or something. There's no.
It's unconscious, subconscious.
Yeah, it's subconscious, but this is just an excuse for not related. Like there's no relationship. Like it's just the easiest way. Oh, all of a sudden she's possessed by a demon and the trauma comes out or something.
Yeah.
It's very superficial. It's very it's a very sort of
it's compartmentalized.
Consumerist, prudish because you don't get your hands dirty. Very nice separated sort of way of looking at at trauma.
Yeah, and then you don't, as a viewer, you don't know whether she does that because maybe she doesn't want to touch the subject because it's painful for her, but that she is interested in the subject of Epstein because it is relevant to her and maybe a trauma or whatever, or her sexuality.
Yeah.
But you never get to know this, and that's why it's
Lame.
And the lesbian scene feels as a sort of decoy in order not to get into it, really. And you don't know the reason for not wanting to get into it, which may be either personal or just like cultural or like social anxiety. Like, I don't want to touch that subject really because it's just difficult in society. And so that's why this lesbian scene feels as if it's sex between, like heterosexual sex between two closeted people.
Yeah, so let's explore why somebody would be interested in this Epstein thing. I think 1, because you are a victim of abuse yourself. 2, because you think it's an interesting, weird cultural phenomena. This sort of mystery, billionaire, forces, Illuminati, like this puzzle, nice puzzles. 3, because you're just completely empty and you're looking something that has weight, cultural weight.
I think there's a real fascination for this situation between Epstein and these girls, and that this fascination has to do with Epstein and him being some kind of someone with a sexual appetite which is so dominant that he is willing to suppress innocent people for that, children, which is sort of the worst thing you can do. It's awful. You really ruin these children's lives. And that this fascination is, and that because she doesn't really explore this fascination for male dominance, sexual dominance, for which she has other reasons that we can go into later. This Epstein becomes like he becomes because he's such a blunt example of this male sexual dominance. He is fascinating, even if it's not actually him that she's attracted to. He becomes a symbol of it. And then I think in trying to relate to this subject, she doesn't realize that it's actually Epstein she's interested in, because she also isn't, but it's the symbol. And she makes the mistake of thinking that she's relating with these girls who are his victims, that it's them that she identifies with. And this is never really resolved. So you have this film in which you have these figures trying to figure out what really happened with Epstein, but there's never a clear choice between, okay, are we following up this Epstein figure and what happened to him, or are we engaged with what he did and the injustice of it and what happened to these girls? It stays vague and unarticulated. Yeah, and I think that's what's going on.
I think this is very interesting.
And then the reason for not finding out what it is that you want from these, what this attraction is to Epstein, which is actually not an attraction to Epstein, but what he stands for, male dominance, which is to the point of disgusting and destructive and evil, is because you're stuck in this self-image of high school girl, who attracts others but is not attracted to something else, herself.
She's not attracted to nothing?
It's this Britney Spears complex, this thing that you have this girl in high school who's dancing and everyone's looking at her. She's sort of moving through the space. Eyes follow her. But she doesn't learn how to feel attraction for something else, or how to develop this, and how to engage.
And therefore this other object of attraction becomes this vague monster.
Yeah.
Epstein.
Yeah, and Weinstein is also like such a figure. It's also in a literal sense that if you have this sort of Britney Spears girl, like me, I also grew up with Britney Spears. This was a sexual idol in our youth.
Mm-hmm.
Then the real male, the real dominant male, is in the background, and he's the producer or the manager, whatever. Like he's the guy making the money. He's the pimp. But part of the cultural narrative, or the MTV clip, isn't that Britney Spears actually fucks
the pimp,
or is pimped by him or whatever. You don't get to see that.
Yeah.
So if this is your sort of, if this scala of cultural images is your sexual upbringing, and other things happen that why she also talks about it, right? She's in one of her podcasts that we were listening. She's what was it? Stunted. Her development is stunted. She makes jokes about this, that she never passes the oral phase. I don't know what her reason is for also romanticizing this state of being stunted in that sort of sexual development. But she's holding on to that for some reason. That's also the music at the beginning of Red Scare, right? The Tatum, whatever. Yeah, these two lesbian girls.
Yeah.
Who never progress out of childhood and therefore become lesbian or something, because they are the same. It's like it's a narcissistic form of lesbianism.
Yeah, this is a completely new image for me. It's very fascinating. This like these child prodigies, or these Britney Spears characters, these Spice Girls, put into a space by this conglomerate or pimp or structure of pimps or producers.
Yeah.
Without like male counterparts to take their virginity or take that sexuality to another stage.
Yeah.
I think it's very much part of this sort of 90s teeny sexuality, Disney sexuality.
Yeah.
And purity in itself becomes a very perverted subject. I mean, the whole concept of purity is inherently
Perverted.
perverse,
Yeah.
but it becomes even more perverted when it's not purity versus deflowering.
Yeah.
Now purity becomes this something even bigger, and it becomes so vague and mysterious, and it's sort of materialized in this Epstein Ghislaine secret state construct. So that, there you find sort of the epitome of this. I mean, it has to be. I mean, the most famous pimp of our age is a pedophile that fucks uninteresting 16-year-olds without a developed personality.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there was a time where pimps also, their trade was also in finding interesting women, that could seduce a man.
Like
these girls
Casanova.
Huh?
Like Casanova.
In the time of Casanova,
Yeah.
Like these girls were only trained to give handjob and massages. Like it's so fucking lame and depressing.
Yeah.
It's so prudish and one-dimensional. This practice of prostitution.
Yeah.
So lame. It's so autistical. It's so bad. It's so like it's stuck in this girl next door fantasy. It's not engaging at all. Or fantastical.
Yeah. Yeah, which sort of makes you divert your attention to this Ghislaine, because what's her kink,
Yeah, she's kinky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's true, like they also make this joke, why does Ghislaine dress up as I don't know what they say, but she dresses up as something. It was funny.
Yeah.
But she has this weird English way of dressing. With high collar, frilly blouses and so on, and short hair.
Yeah, but I think the basic problem of the film is that she didn't philosophize or think enough on the subject of Epstein and what it culturally entails.
Yeah.
And she ends up making this, like, giving the Epstein myth this ironic position in the film, only confirming what it already is. It's like comedians saying it's impossible to make a joke about Trump because he himself already embodies the joke.
Yeah.
You cannot make sort of lame ironic joke about Epstein because he is, lameness and sort of irony of capitalism.
Yeah, and then the film gets stuck in deriving its tension from being a portrayal of going down a rabbit hole, which is completely irrational and random.
And boring.
And also followed through by individuals who have no bearing on reality and therefore also no relevance. And are figments of themselves or something.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, this is she does understand this. So in the end, Dasha ends up in this cellar, and everything appears to be made up or something. Because this dorks, but this is not a satisfying. This is a result. This is a conclusion of a flaw, and not a conclusion of the subject that she was actually interested in and started off with, which is this her fascination with Ghislaine and Epstein, and
She should have mapped out what her part in it is, what her investment in the subject is.
yes, because it's about the film sort of has a problem of, if you're making a film about Epstein, you have this problem where you don't know what happened. You don't know what is true. It is a conspiracy thing, or it gives rise to many conspiracies. You just don't know, and there's no way to find out. So I think the only solution that you can find for such a problem, if you want to make that film, is that you have to find the angle that you do know. And that is her fascination for the subject, her relationship, and the way in which you can sort of extrapolate that towards a broader social, cultural insight. But because she sort of realizes that she cannot know, she chooses the perspective of
Silliness.
of silly people caught up in going down a rabbit hole, who have lost all bearing on reality, who therefore cannot know, and that is the end all of it. We will never know, or something. But it's not about that. It's not about that. It doesn't matter that you'll never know, because there are things you do know, and that is you.
Yeah, or maybe you don't know, but you can explore.
Yeah.
That's it, huh?
Yeah.
But I think it's good.
Well, it's at least, I think we do have it now. If there is a possibility to reach the author of this artwork,
Then it's through this.
then it's through this, and I'm interested in that, because I like making things that penetrate the audience towards the author.
You want to reach Dasha, or in general artists, with this movie talk.
Well, in this case, of course, we chose this film that she made because there is something about her that's interesting and attractive as an artist, or as a cultural figure, and that has to do with that she's sort of in the same niche as we are, and she's also my age. And
What niche?
um
What niche, actually, huh?
yeah, what niche? Yeah, it has to do with the perspective you have, the outlook on life, and the possibilities for you in that world as a millennial, and how you relate to all these ideological constructs and institutions that seem to be there only in benefit of a generation before you, but you have to bear their sort of dominant assumption that it's good for everyone. And then you have all these political events that sort of break up, like Trump, Iraq War, etc., that break up that faith, make it impossible, and you have to grapple with that reality. And if you want to make art, you have to do something with that. And we do that in our way, and the Red Scare and Dasha in this film do that in their way.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoy our practice and want to see it thrive, support us by donating and telling your friends about us. Become a patron on our website and enter the patrons room. www.kirac.nl